Hey guys, Sean Kliger with Chris Siebenar, and this is another episode of two-stroke versus four-stroke, but this time it is an off-road edition. We have a KTM 300 XC and a GasGas EC 450. Now, both of these bikes are in the cross-country category, so that's off-road, but it's like off-road racing, faster stuff, works, GNCC, but both of these bikes are kind of in that open class where the power-wise are going to be comparable, but obviously they make power very differently. You got a 300 two-stroke and a 450 four-stroke. We spent 2 days of riding on these bikes. The first day was kind of tight, rocky.
Yeah, a lot of low speed, tight technical, up and over, you cussing and swearing, bending a front fender that I didn't know was possible.
Slamming into a boulder and having it pinned. I don't know how I did that one. Yeah, today has we have a nice long sandy section, kind of some two-track that's wide open, some technical climbs, then some whoops too. So we kind of wanted to run through how each category, each section of the bike kind of worked in for both days, what we liked, what we didn't like. So first we're going to talk about the biggest difference between these bikes. The engine. Obviously, these bikes coming from GasGas and KTM, they have the same chassis, relatively the same frame, same bodywork, same suspension. It's WP. They both have the air fork. Starting with the 300, we just finished up the two-stroke off-road shootout, so I was familiar with that. It's surprising how much you can use it and how precise you can be with it, and it comes down to the way it makes power. And with the two-stroke, how much you could leave it in even second gear, not really have to feather the clutch, and just have this supreme throttle control. I know exactly where the power is going to come on, how smooth it's going to be, and to pop over things and get up technical stuff. I really love that. The four-stroke, the 450, I almost don't think it's the fault of the power. It's the gearing. That bike is just geared too high for really technical riding. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, when you start really slowing down, that's kind of the Achilles heel of it, where you're just riding the clutch nonstop. I kind of feel like I have that bike
even in first gear,
yeah. And so it also makes it very difficult because you're trying to ride first gear, and it still feels too tall when you're in that real tight section. And then as soon as you get out of it, and first gear kind of winds out, it has a lot of engine braking to it, so you're kind of having to like push through the engine braking. It's kind of like an awkward spot. Now, I'd almost feel like the bike would benefit from, I would almost go up like down a full tooth up front, up a couple in the back, or I think it'd be really good with like a wide ratio trim. Something where first is low, second is lower than standard, then you kind of get in the third and whatnot. But that's where, I don't think in all the days that I've ridden the 300 from the off-road shootout to today, I don't think I've ever stalled that bike. It will chug and turn so down low in the RPMs, like even where you would think it's gonna stall, it doesn't. It turns over once more and keeps going.
Both of these bikes have enough power to be really lazy and to not have to shift and not have to, but it's like the gearing on the GasGas doesn't let you trust that you're gonna have that torque, because it's there, it's just not accessible necessarily with this gearing. Going into the suspension, I didn't notice a huge difference in the suspension, because both of these are WP, air fork, similar shocks, and they both work really well. These both have linkages because they're the cross country, they're not the PDS shocks. I didn't find myself preferring one suspension over the other. Did you?
Again, kind of depending where we go, and this kind of plays back to the engine, and you always have to remember that depending on your engine, when you make engine modifications, 250, 450, two-stroke, four-stroke, how the bike makes power, that power gets loaded into the suspension through the chassis. So when you're looking at a two-stroke, it just doesn't load the suspension as much. And so remember, we were talking earlier, and you're like, I kind of feel like the 250, the 300, you're floating a lot. And I think a lot of times when you get on the gas, whereas on the 450, it weighs more, but you have more torque and you have a lot more that's getting fed through the bike. It loads in the suspension. It brings the bike down, so you don't get that light, floating, lively feeling that you kind of get on the 300.
Yeah, that was one of the main things. That kind of transitions into the kind of the handling and the chassis feel and the ride feel, and that's that was definitely one of the biggest differences for me was in the sand. I was thinking the faster terrain, the more open things got, the more I'd want to ride the 450. But I was really happy with the way that the 300 handled the sand. And like you said, it was basically, I realized it was like when you're wide open in the sand and then you just kind of, you don't chop the throttle, but you just ease off. Even that easing off does start to load the fork on the 450. And that starts to knife or move, or like it just
He's a little grabby when you're in the powdery tones.
Maybe upsets the chassis a little bit. And it's just like it feels like the 300 just kind of stays neutral. And then when you set up for a turn in the sand, I know where it's going to go. Where the 450, when I let off, it's like, well, okay, is it going to go too far or whatever? Also, like in the tight, kind of more single track riding, I really liked both. The more I rode the 450 and the kind of, you start to learn how it works, I really did enjoy both bikes. But there was kind of the main difference for that single track was that I felt more, if I charged on the 450, I felt like that was more rewarding, but then the mistakes were more punishing. Where the two-stroke, I felt like maybe I was a little bit slower or less exciting to ride, but like more in control of the bike.
On the GasGas, it's kind of I don't want to say good and bad, but that some of that feed the GasGas feels like it's a little bit heavy on the ground. But again, it's not a bad thing. It just feels like it's very planted. And that's going over a lot of sections. It almost feels like it's hard to get the bike off the ground, a little bit. Going through the single track stuff, that's where opening the throttle, getting into it, and the way the bike squats and feeds in, it does have a very planted feel for me, and it's really confidence inspiring for me, especially today where it's dry and dusty, but to get the load into the back end and drive it out and be nice and consistent and smooth. The two-stroke doesn't have that same planted, squat feeling in it.
The $1 million question is, which one do you want to take home today? If you had to take one home and keep it, which one do you want?
If I was to race the bike, I would have the 450.
And you're talking like a Works or like a...
Works races, like the Big Six, SRAs, GPs, stuff like that. I think I would go with the 450, just because again, there's a little bit more control there. I do like the way it feels. If it was a personal play bike, I'm doing trails, riding out and about, doing a lot of technical stuff, 300 all the way.
Like for me, it was like I would want. Yes, I agree very much with everything that you said. But if I had to pick one and only one to do all of it, I think for me the 300, and this is hard for me to say because I've always owned four strokes. I've never owned a two-stroke, and I've always kind of leaned towards four-stroke no matter what. But I think I'd want to take home the 300, and the reason is that it is, for one, hill climbs. Holy crap! It is so easy to climb on the 300 for me. They both make a ton of power, and you can climb almost anything on the 450. It just felt like I was pointing the bike up the hill, whacking it wide open, and just holding on, just kind of squinting my eyes and just like, holy crap, I'm going to make it, but like, I don't really feel like I'm in control. The 300, I felt like in second gear, pointed up, the RPM doesn't drop, it's just powering up that hill. I can make some tea, have a little sip, like everything is just chill and really in control. The tight technical stuff, so much easier, so much more fun on the 300. Then the fastest, most open riding, there's not that much of a detriment on the 300. That I would even race it in Works. If it was a bike that I had to own and I can only own one out of these two, it would be the 300. So we use Crossbox on the bikes to kind of put some data to this test, and out here we had a loop that we had that was very consistent, so that we put down multiple laps on each bike, and let's look at the lap times.
So the lap times on the KTM for me today was 10 minutes 55 seconds, and for Sean was 12 minutes 20 seconds. On the GasGas, your time on the 450 was 12 minutes 49 seconds, so 29 seconds slower. Given just lap times, how do you feel effort-wise it was to race
it
it to? Do you think you put in more effort and still went 29 seconds slower, or do you feel how's the effort level?
No, so that's the crazy thing. The effort level, because I have to, if you're a real rider, you make mistakes. Okay, no one here is Graham Jarvis. Most people watching this are not that level of technical rider that can clean anything. You still have to do, if you stall and push and hop off and run alongside it, you still got to do those things. And so effort wise, putting all that together, 100% way more effort on the 450. Like the 300, for one, I made less mistakes, so I was off the bike less. I didn't feel like I was going faster. I was much less worn out after a lap on the 300.
So for me, on the GasGas, 10 minutes, 13 seconds was my fastest time. So 42 seconds faster.
And you have a much lower lap time, so that's significant. That's a much higher percentage as well.
For me, affected lap times a little bit. Going into my last lap was some of the other laps, I was trying really hard to push. And with the 450, again, the motor, the chassis, the weight, if you're not making the turn, you have to stop your momentum to make that turn. And that was also one thing with the 300 is I feel like even if you go in hot, you don't have to stop the bike for its direction change. You can change it and it'll go.
Yes. Yeah, I would say like rider input on the 300, just with your knee and just shifting your weight, it makes a bigger impact on getting the bike to turn and getting it to lean over to kind of initiate that turn than on the 450. Like you said, if you do the same effort, it's like, I kind of want to keep going that same direction. So that's our 2-stroke versus 4-stroke off-road edition. If there's any other 2-stroke versus 4-stroke videos that you guys want to see, please put that in the comments below. If you're on vitalmx.com, please check out our YouTube channel. If you're on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You might not be subscribed, yet you might see our videos. So that's all we got. Thanks for watching.